actually seems like one of the first steampunk RPGs to come out. It's a storyline-based RPG, unlike what you've seen out of GURPS and maybe what you've seen out, if you remember, Castle Falkenstein from way back in the day, long time ago. But we were, we've had this concept running. It's been about a 2-year thing where we've been building on this. We've been noticing steampunk has been big, and we'd always been a big fan of the genre ourselves. So, we got more coming in. So what happened is there was no steampunk RPG on the market, so we decided to release one of our own. And so I'm Jeffrey Dohm. I'm in con world, I'm usually referred to as Dread. It's a long, old nickname that is from my AEG years when I used to work there. So I'm the creator of Steamfortress Victory. This is Joshua Glenn. He's the creative director for the Steamfortress Victory books. So what we're planning to have is a book out in 2011 for the core rules. Yeah, late May. It's going to be it's going to be like last week of May. But what we have today is before we put out the core rules, we decided to put out a standalone adventure. Okay, so this is playable out of the book. No need for character sheets. Character creation is going to come with the core rules when we get those out. So I guess we could go through and tell you a little bit about the Steamfortress world, right? Okay, so the story for the book is basically an alternate history story. All right, so both of us are big fans of H.G. Wells, big fans of Time Machine, and we decided, all right, well, a good way to start a book is to have something happen in the real world, because everybody can relate to what's been going on in America, right? So, even many of us know our history, okay? And, we like America. We obviously live here, right? So, they were like, it's going to be a little bit different than what the traditional steampunk is. Traditional steampunk's always set in Edwardian England and stuff like that. We decided to put one. Is that what it is? Edwardian? Yeah.
Edwardian, Vernian, there's subchapters of subchapters.
Yeah. Kind of thing. So, most of it's always set in England. But we decided to set ours right here in the good old US of A. All right, and we made the focus of our book a time paradox. Okay, so for those of you know what time paradox is, basically what happened is that something in the time stream happened, all right, differently, all right, and with deep physics and stuff like this, it's like one can make the argument, how do you know it happened differently, blah 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 blah. Well, we know what our world turned out like today, right? We are just changing one thing in the world, and the one thing we've changed in the world is we inserted into the world an alloy called blood ore, all right? So, and those of you that were at our party last night got a taste of this blood ore cocktail we had floating around.
Everybody needs a drink.
Everybody needs a drink, yes. So the idea behind the blood ore is that it's an alloy made of part of a new element, part of iron, and what it does is it has a greater density, so it allows the boilers to function at higher rates. So if you guys are familiar with steam equipment, the biggest problem you have with your steam equipment is you have the gears, all right, or sometimes they grind, right, and they get worn out. But the second biggest problem is the power behind your steam equipment is usually sourced off your boiler, all right? And if your boiler sucks, you're only going to go so far. I mean, if we go to Back to the Future 3 as a reference, right, like he's talking to the engineer, talking about how to get something up to 88 miles an hour on a track. One of the things the engineer mentions is that you first of all get the fires hotter than the blazes of hell, and then you hope to God that the thing doesn't blow up on you, right? So, with the blood ore advent in this game, what occurs is that steam technology is able to, increase 3x, all right, about 3 or 4 times faster than...
Depending on what the equipment is.
Yeah, depending on what piece of equipment they were working with. The way we start all good stories is we got to introduce a villain, and we got to introduce, the main character of the story. And the main character of the story would be this guy, Dr. Hawkins, all right? What Dr. Hawkins does is somebody finds this blood ore chunk in the hills of Savannah, Georgia, and brings it in his laboratory, runs some tests on it. Him and his assistant, Philip Silverhorn, run these tests on this thing, and they find out that it is, a very strong alloy. It can be used to upgrade boiler equipment, gears, all kinds of different things. So, what does the guy do?
Steals it.
What does the first guy do? The first doctor, the first Dr. Hawkins decides, well, I lost someone I loved a little while ago. I'm going to build myself a time machine and try and fix that. All right. So what happens is he slips out of the time stream. All right. So as he slips out of the time stream, who finds the blood ore and his work is his assistant. So the main character of the book is, the time traveler is not really in the story like as a main player. He's bouncing around through time. We don't really know what he's doing in the core book. Okay, we just know he slipped out of time, and because he slipped out of time, he created a time paradox. Whatever he was supposed to do with the blood ore didn't happen. The world didn't happen the same way it was supposed to happen. And his assistant got a hold of this blood ore and became the greatest industrialist on the planet. So, we start getting into this America. If you guys are familiar with the Reconstruction era, because this all happens around 1860, 1867-ish is where we had it. And there's a whole bunch of history that comes up to the actual beginning of the core book in 1900. All right. This here is the prequel to the core book. This takes place in 1892. So, long story short, what happens is that the assistant uses the blood ore to build all kinds of equipment, build his own empire.
Weapons of war, things.
Weapons of war. Clockwork steeds, zeppelins, all kinds of different things.
Oh, the blood ore zeppelin.
Well, the blood ore.
The blood ore is what's powering.
It's what's powering the boilers, and the other thing that he's putting together is like, how you have to have a woven cloth to fill, so he makes like sort of a Kevlar out of it too. So, that
we realize from a
shields.
scientific point of view, you can only go so far with your typical gas bag type thing, having that much power put into it. So we kind of had to compensate each step of the building process into it. Again, just like any good steampunk, it's starting from the littlest bolt and working your way up.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of science that goes into this, which is why the book has taken so long to get out in 2011, because we've been sitting there basically checking our facts. I teach science personally, so, I know quite a bit about all these types of things. So anyways, this guy builds up his empire. This Philip Silverhorn becomes basically the main villain. And once you've built an industrialist empire, what would any good villain, be if they didn't actually try and make a big power grab in the United States of America? So what the man does is that he basically starts, because he controls all the major technology, he basically starts distributing it to people. And the first effect of him making deals with people within the United States is that during the United States of that era, the Native American situation was not fully resolved. Okay, so he actually alters the Black Hill War so that the Lakota win the war and not the United States. He forces the United States into some of the upper half of the United States and parts of the lower half of the United States into basically a depression. All right. And, the people, it's partially based on sort of what's happening to us at this moment in time in real life, is that, our society is, has been falling apart for like, a few years now, okay?
So our economy has certainly been taking a beating, as we're sure we're all aware of.
And part of it is because, leadership is hit or miss in some things. The leadership, doesn't know how to act quickly and decisively. So, if the Lakota had won that war in the Black Hills, what would have happened is that the leadership may not have been able to deal with that, especially because they've already fought an unpopular civil war not more than 12 years ago. Okay, so what happens is lose the Black Hill War, the Lakota take over the center half of the United States. All right, you have
bearing in mind as well that which mountain range was it that they found the blood ore?
The mountain range is the Smokies, the
Smokies,
Appalachians.
thank you. In the Smokies, they had found in our storyline, we found more blood ore within there, so he basically struck a deal with the Indians to assist them in the Black Hills War. But in doing so, he also gets the ability to get the blood ore on kind of on the slide, so that it's not this great thing that everybody's rushing out to try to find for themselves, and it'll ease the market.
The basic deal was that he went to the leaders of the Lakota at the time. He said, "I want your blood ore," and they said, "We want your technology." So basically, the battle, Custer's last stand turns into Custer with his United States cavalry, and the subsequent battles that happened after that. Custer with the United States cavalry with the horses, and then we had the Lakota Sioux are running around, on these, clockwork steeds that breathe fire. Okay, so and have guns strapped to them. So
Not a fair fight.
yeah, not a fair fight in the slightest. So, that's going to be some stuff that's going to be revealed through the book. We're going to go through like the whole thing. I'm just trying to get the overview here. Okay,
Sure.
so it leads up to them electing this president Guteau. All right, and President Guteau, essentially, he's trying to repair. Before he repairs the country, he's actually trying to build the morale of the people. So he thinks by giving money to people, this will fix things, and spending gigantic sums of money on giant public programs.
This sounds familiar. Just let us know.
Yeah, if this sounds familiar, let us know. And what happens is that he eventually, makes the United States, in a state of huge debt, all right, because you fought multiple wars with the Native Americans. You didn't really fix anything within your own economy, and then after what had occurred, you're just sitting there flat broke. So the worst case scenario happens in this because the guy, Guteau, is not exactly, he's sort of like portrayed as sort of a bumbling idiot, just he's an unscrupulous bumbling idiot. He's just clearly out for himself, all right? And what occurs is that Philip Silverhorn at one point or another goes, okay, you guys are in debt, you guys need a loan. He can't get the loans from other countries because the United States credit is bad. So he goes to Silverhorn and he says, hey, we got all this gold, and since blood ore isn't very important, blood ore is the precious metal of the economy right now, how about I just sell you Fort Knox? So he goes ahead and sells it, all right? And the way he shows off that he has fixed the country is he throws, the Columbian Exposition happens anyway in real life, but he throws, this gigantic Columbian Exposition that shows the power of the United States and all the wonderful things that we've done. All right, and so
all the showcase of all of our great technologies. If you've never had an opportunity to look it up online, by all means, take a look. It's absolutely fantastic. The first electric parade was there. What else did they have there?
They had a lot. Yeah, they had a lot of different things. I mean, the Ferris wheel was obviously one of the more important things that they did there. And then they had the first motor cars were there, the quadricycles. So it was it was a bastion of technology, the Columbian Exposition. So, and this is where a day at the fair comes in, is that what occurs in this particular story arc is that it's about the crew who stumble across what's coming towards the Columbian Exposition, which is obviously the key piece of the whole thing, called the Steamfortress Victory. All right. So what Silverhorn does is he basically uses all of his monetary wealth to he's finally like, yep, I'm just going to take out I'm going to just take the United States for myself at this point. I'm going to shoot a big warning shot across everybody's bow. And so what he does is he builds this gigantic steam fortress he refers to as the Victory. All right. And he lands it directly on the Columbian Exposition while, during the opening ceremony. So the core book will start in 1899 when, basically chaos is ensued, a second civil war has erupted. You have the Dakota, has most of the territory along the Mississippi River. You have Texas just said, we don't need any of you, so we're going away for a little while. Yeah, where they just leave. They're just like, we don't want any part of this. So, and then on the East Coast or West Coast is one of the more complicated issues of the game. Is that we figured if there was something similar to a gold rush that happened on the East Coast, similar things would happen, as in people would migrate towards the eastern coast.
Specifically towards Georgia, because again, if there's all that money to be made off of the blood ore with how precious it is, they're going to migrate there in heavy numbers. No two ways about it.
So the group